Hello, everybody. I'm going to try to do a fairly quick video here. Just what little overview of some stocks and stuff that I saw today and what I'm expecting in the overnight session. I'm expecting to see a responsive bid out of Asia this evening, across the board. Um, basically, we're coming up on this bottom of this upper distribution, and I kind of think we're going to break out of that today and push to this range high for the close on the Nikkei in the overnight session. And then for a little more detailed view here for the Shanghai or the FXI, this is the ETF that tracks Shanghai. And in the futures right now, it is drifting up. Shanghai is catching up to today's trade in the thing. And basically, we had this yearly. This is a yearly resistance area for value area high, and we broke out of that in today's session. After hours had a back test, and now we're rocketing higher above a prior yearly resistance area. So keep that in mind. I think that's the 2017 value area highs, if I remember right here. So really showing some relative strength here into the overnight session into China markets. Now today on the German DAX, you notice it didn't have nearly the bounce that we saw in the other global markets. And it had a lot to do with the fact that the German DAX was not down here in the sweet spot for the high volatility zone in the trend. Like if it had been down there, it would have had the potential for a much higher volatility like we saw in the Asia and the US markets. So basically, we have a bullish trend. We are crossing over to the 50% fib fan. So we are crossing on the bullish side of the trend in an uptrend. So it's a dual situation for the German DAX. But I do want to point out Germany is lagging most of the European Union. It's one of the weakest areas in the European Union. So just keep that on your watch. That whole Brexit vote tomorrow afternoon is going to be a game changer for the trends. Many of these trends were either going to be rocketing higher on some sort of positive catalyst, which basically the markets are already pricing in, or basically if they were to be crazy and vote for a hard Brexit, that is going to be devastating for global equities. So keep that in mind. It's something that global equities would have a very hard time. We could see at least a 5% correction, I would say, if that were to be the case on the vote tomorrow. So, in the after-hour session, the rally continues higher here. Very strong pattern going on here in the thing. And right now, we are back to last week's volume point of control. So this is a responsive resistance area in the overnight session. So we're looking at the 178. Let's see here. What are we marking at here? 179.38. So we actually might be seeing the highs of the session right here, right now. Seeing that resistance right there. So right through here, we probably have some resistance going into tomorrow's session. I do think this is going up here to the 281.60 area once we get past that vote. So right through here, like I said, possible resistance. And that what confirms my vote theory here. We're breaking out of above weekly value in the overnight session into the close there. We closed at 8 o'clock. So the closing print was pushing about above the weekly here. And we have a double top situation in place right here. So, it is a distinct possibility that we found some resistance right here. Just keep that in mind. And we are still in a fairly big volatility zone. So this thing can move up real quick here. And then once we get into this next Fibonacci level, then things will actually start slowing down. Now, like I mentioned before, our Russell's still showing relative weakness. we're still in our channel, but we are just we're coming off the bottom at it went up with the markets today, but at a slightly lesser enthusiasm to take the markets higher. So keep that in mind. We are getting a little less enthusiastic on this push up. Okay, crude is showing some relative strength here. It was going up with the markets today, but just keep in mind, come Wednesday, we had a far less draw on crude oil last week than what the markets had anticipated. So I think they've ratcheted down the expectations for this week, but that is something to keep on the back burner there. That was a significant miss on the crude demand last week, and just because everything's going up in the markets in unison right now doesn't mean that's going to continue for the rest of the week, especially this being OPEC's week. So basically, we had quite a bit of money. The euro caught a nice little short squeeze today going into the Brexit vote. There was talk and stuff about, uh, you know, uh, that the vote was going to miss, or that the vote was going to fail, and that actually put a bid back into the euro this morning. And but because of that, we saw a lot of currencies selling the dollar today, and this has been the safe haven. Everybody's been piling into the dollar into all this uncertainty, and now since we're coming into a point where some of this uncertainty might be getting cleared up, these higher levels here are starting to come down on the dollar, which would, if the dollar does continue to come in, it would be negative for the, or would be a driving force for crude oil. Four stocks that on my scans that really kept showing up all afternoon long, higher than normal afternoon volume, and one of them was Micron here, and we are catching a little bit of bid back into today's developing range. So I'm thinking we're going to see continuation in Micron holding up at these prices. We did get a little bit of afternoon sell off, but we'll see how the markets go on the open tomorrow. Qualcomm, that is a Apple supplier, and a lot of the Apple suppliers were catching supporting bids. It's catching another bid in the after hour session, supportive. It was, like I said, Avgo or Broadcom, they are reporting Thursday, and that's helping drive Apple. Along with Apple is having they announced that they were going to have on the 25th, I think. They've got a product release or something, something is going on that they're going to be releasing. Another one catching a lot of interest this afternoon was Texas Instruments, and they are a supplier to Apple, but they also been having struggling here lately a little bit. But yeah, these Apple suppliers are going right up with Apple today, and yeah, it did catch quite a bit of it's right back into value for the day. So we'll see how that one goes tomorrow. And then Glue Mobile, that was another one. Most of the afternoon was catching responsive buying action. It looks like a short squeeze situation off Glue Mobile coming in today. Okay, Apple was outright the story of the day. I mean, it is catching one heck of a bid here. It's continuing in the after hour sessions. The 180.14 area, I have some responsive resistance right here off of this prior virgin point of control or volume point of control. But technically, the real resistance would be 182.50 area. So, and I have said we got this trend line right here. So I'm actually thinking we're going to get to 185 this week. So just keep that in mind depending on how these markets rate up. But 182.50 is definitely a decent target for this week, given the relative strength in Apple. I mean, this got all this pent up energy where the company has been accumulating shares, and this happening the way it did this morning, I really think the company itself was loading up on the Apple stock in the pre-market session, driving that gap into Apple this morning. That's exactly what I think was happening this morning, causing this massive rally. They were planning that press release this afternoon, and they were buying up their shares pre-market to get things rocking today. Roku continues to rock and be one of the best stocks in the stock market this year. This here, in my opinion, is going to significantly put pressure on Netflix going forward. And I've actually tried the platform, and I really like it. It's a very nice platform. But before the week's out, I would not be surprised to see Roku back here tying, having a double top. Okay. Our FANG names, Monsters of Tech, they were the ones that are even showing up in the after-hour session, continuing the drives higher. And that's why I brought the Apple, the Roku, and the Netflix. All these right through here, they're continuing their moves higher in the after-hour session. So, and they're driving the indices higher because of it. So just keep that in mind. We are going to be opening around the 366, 367 area, likely here on Netflix. It's got a bid in the after hours. Amazon has a bid in the after hours. Like another one. Amazon's not so good. It doesn't have the technical driving force behind it, but you know, the way this market is, you know, depending on the news, 1700 is still in the cards for this week for Amazon. And Google. We're up to a monthly, resistance area, but we are continuing strong after hours above that. So keep that in mind. Despite the fact we got resistance, we are busting out above that. Okay, so we are into price discovery mode even on Google, and Google is one of the ones that we're showing relative strength even in the worst of the market action on the FANG stocks. And then OLED. OLED is an Apple supplier showing some relative strength. Had the real nice gap up on earnings, and it looks like we are setting up. Basically, this is most likely half the move we're going to see into the earnings if this is typically a pattern that we've been seeing here lately. So, you know, this move right here, so you're looking about a 20-point move, even higher, if these markets continue to catch a bid. And Square, it's popping in the after hours. So financials, catching a bid. It looks like it's going to be coming up, backtesting this channel on the open tomorrow. And Microsoft, it's right up here tying the range highs in the after hour session. So it has a bid. Cisco has a bid. So Cisco could actually be putting new 52-week highs tomorrow. At the very least tying it. We're coming into tomorrow with Cisco possibly breaking out. And then XLF, I wanted to point out, the Monsters of Tech and your financials, you want both of those confirming the move higher. And as you can see in the after-hour session, we are right now printing on the closing print above today's highs on our financials. I don't know what's going to happen in tomorrow's session, but I had said in my earlier video, I thought financials were going to lead the charge tomorrow in the markets. And that's why I have Goldman Sachs calls going into tomorrow. And if you look at some of these banks in the after-hour session, they were doing extremely well. Right back to the highs on Bank of America. Citigroup's not doing so well. JP Morgan, was that the one? I saw one of these. It's really... JP Morgan is gapping up above today's highs right here. So it's showing the most relative strength in my opinion. And then Goldman Sachs is lagging just a tad bit. Okay, it's not really catching the bid yet. But this range right here is a really good range for it to run in the overnight session, in my opinion. And the last thing I want to talk about, and just have on the back of your mind what's setting up here. Starting next week, the gut of the buyback blackouts, you know, that they have a blockout period where most companies cannot buy back their own shares. Well, it starts next week. for the next 2 weeks coming, we are not going to have all those buybacks supporting price in the markets. So this is potentially a much higher volatile time frame going into the next 2 weeks without the buyback. So if they don't get some serious resolutions going on with some of these geopolitical uh, discussions going on, um, the absence of all these buybacks next week could definitely start some selling pressure in these markets. So basically, 75% of the companies are going to be in blackout mode basically the next 2 weeks. So very important to realize that a lot of the money that's been propping up the markets will be disappearing starting next week. Okay, if you like the video, like it. Leave comments down below. I appreciate it and everything. My handle on Twitter is Gumby9662C. Please follow me, and I have the link on my stream. Reshare it to your friends and family, and hopefully we can learn these markets all together here and trade what's happening, and hopefully we can all make some money. Thanks a lot.